You able to see the presentation? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, as far as I remember, you went through an activity that was watching a TED Talk, and it was a discussion on the power of language and how language somehow could shape the way we think. I think the participation in the forum was really valuable, was insightful, you know, and to a certain extent meaningful for getting a very own definition and reference and perception of what language does to us in our context and potential contexts we might face while studying the BA and once you graduate from the BA. So regardless of your job, whether you're teachers, whether you're translators, interpreters, researchers, writers, I strongly believe that having an approach to language really helps, you know, becoming a professional and understanding in depth what you have to do with language and what language does to us. It was a reflection, and as a result, I decided to come up with a language acquisition theories so that you can keep on reflecting the role of language and your role as a future professional of the language. We're gonna check these language acquisitions. In the first, sorry, I need a sip of water. I'm sorry. Okay. The first language acquisition theory has to do with behaviorism. But before we go into this theory, and it's an approach, you know, an approach is a general way, a broad sense to see things, whether if you go for science or research. So it's a, you know, a whole revolution of thought, you know, that separated religion from science. And, you know, reasoning was present, but also reactions to what nature does. So it's very interesting to see many theories have evolved and how we have been studying language in order to have accurate answers. Now we have different resources regarding science, but still we're doing research in order to understand how language works and how our brain works as well. So it would be good for you to add to your previous discussion the questions on how language emerged and to reflect on how you learned your own language, your native language. Well, the behaviorist approach, which is a theory, proposes that we all learn through operant conditioning. This operant conditioning has to do with what this very famous biologist Jean Piaget, stating regarding stages of cognitive development. According to Piaget, you know, we all, when we were children, certain sounds, you know, are able to produce, you know, certain things. It's because of a need, you know, and this is quite related to the most famous theory of how language emerged, that we used to listen to nature sounds and then we started reproducing the sounds of the nature. The same happens when, you know, mothers are talking to the children and, you know, they actually speak differently so that they can be understood in order to transmit the baby, meaning, you know, they speak slowly, you know, with a different tone of voice. They employ different pace. different pitch. So this is according to behaviorism, a matter of reactions to our needs. So it's very interesting to see how this classification of stages was proposed by Piaget, and to actually analyze the way we behave and the steps we follow when we were children, and also to observe what others have done, whether our brothers, sisters, or people we know, and how they have a close relationship with the mother so that they can reproduce those sounds. Another approach for language is the innatist one, and it states that individuals are born with an inner capacity for language, and that's quite related to Chomsky's ideas of the language acquisition device. Some kind of a hardware, in our brains, so that we can collectively transmit knowledge and language, and that's why we are different from animals. So this is another theory, that has been discussed for many years, regarding Chomsky. Even Saussure talks about it, and well, it's a very controversial, but it states that we have this capacity. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to understand what is happening to us, even in the womb. So it's very interesting to investigate it and to read by our own in order to understand the different theories. Another theory, sorry. Okay, another theory has to do with social interaction. The first one, the behaviorism. Behaviorism stated that we had a close relationship with nature. Okay, innatism states that we have a language acquisition device in our brains, but the social interaction theory proposes that language is learned through social interaction. So the play of a mother is even more important, and the play of people around us rather than the environment and nature is more important in order to develop language. And to a certain extent, that might make sense if we think of situations where we are trying to communicate and we feel we were understood, and there is almost this spiritual connection, that you can't explain just because interaction took place. So this is the proposal of the scholars who propose the interactionist approach, and it's a collaborative condition which leads to language development. So we have three different theories. Three of the most famous and most discussed in the literature, of course. Just to keep on going, now we're gonna check behaviorist approach, the behaviorist approach for language acquisition theories regarding second language, okay? Not the mother tongue, but second language. One of the things we need to bear in mind and to consider for this perspective has to do with the audiolingual method. And this is very interesting because everything starts interweaving, language acquisition theories, methodologies, and learners' characteristics. And remember that age is a key element and a key condition for us to determine learning and teaching processes. So we could inquire the nature of methods in order to reflect on the way we learned, but more importantly, in order to reflect on what we want to do with language. And if you plan to be teachers, well, you are now pre-service teachers who need to take responsibility of what you're going to do in the future with your students. And I'm sure that a huge percentage of you guys are gonna be teaching eventually, regardless of your job, of course. Um, so in this method, dialogue, drills, repetitions are included for listening and for speaking development. And then, eventually the literacy skills might be built, might be constructed. This approach insists that errors should be corrected immediately in order to avoid fossilization. So look how interesting it is to connect language acquisition theory and second language development, second language acquisition, and what happens in similar contexts such as ours. Different settings, of course. Remember that we stated today it was the deadline, I think. I can't remember very well, for your second language and foreign language comparison chart, and most of you did very well. I just need to check a couple of things from your comparisons. Now, regarding the innatist perspective, remember that those were approaches in the past. They were actually dividing, stages. Well, not stages. Well, they actually had impact on people's way of thinking regarding science, literature, and all branches of knowledge. So, in this perspective, English language learners are seen as creatively constructive roles for the second language in a similar way they did for the mother tongue. Okay, however, these learners use the contrastive analysis according to this perspective in the second language acquisition, and this might have implications for other theories such as Krashen's hypothesis of language acquisition, and also, for what linguists have called interference, the impact that the L1 has got on L2 might also be visible, and observable in yourself and on others. So you could see the picture there, and somehow it tries to explain how your brain work functions there in order to acquire the second language, and to a certain extent it's a process in which bilingualism experiences, I can remember, the case of a really close friend of mine who was bilingual, and she used to call the moon, she called her Muna, because she found it difficult to separate the word Luna and moon. So sometimes she needed to speak English, and others she needed to communicate in Spanish. So there was this interference phenomenon, happening while acquiring second language. In this case, the second language was Spanish. So this is one example of, what may happen with the language acquisition language acquisition device that Chomsky was referring to at the beginning of his work, that eventually was developed, and it evolved. Now, while you're thinking of this first and second language acquisition theories, try to think of potential activities you might employ and the ones you have experienced previously, so that you can see, whether you find commonalities or differences and suitability. Yeah, just activities. The next is the interactionist perspective, okay, in second language acquisition. This is the way both, native and non-native speakers of the language interact to make themselves understood. It's a negotiation. New users of English, for instance, might use a couple of the compensatory strategies. I don't know if you are familiar with the concept. The ones who were my students in the strategies course might remember that these compensatory strategies are really helpful for communication and for negotiation of meaning, because you can use your body language, gesticulation, observation skills, as well as the movement of your hands, in order to try to create a cognate, to associate a word or concept and try to get your ideas across to achieve their communicative goal in any situation. So in this case, the social interaction factor plays a paramount role. Okay, we usually reflect on this by, having a conversation with someone in English and you don't find the proper word, or even in Spanish, when you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to someone and you suddenly get stuck because you don't know what word to use and you don't remember the word, well, the negotiation starts because you start moving and the other person helps you to continue with your message. So in the end, the way you develop a second language by means of the interactionist perspective is through social interaction and negotiation of meaning. And this has also implications, because once you discriminate the different perspectives, the different approaches, and the three different theories, you might be able to divide, what Piaget stated. And, if you can remember and you read from your previous courses, you could reflect on what Vygotsky and Brunner stated regarding social interaction and the role of routines when acquiring a second language, the role of scaffolding in order to support students' learning processes, and of course, the new concept of intelligence by stating the procedures of the zone of proximal development. So all those elements, those conditions make up the interactionist approach for second language acquisition. There is this sociocultural theory, also called social constructivism by Vygotsky and Brunner. Well, Vygotsky was, a Russian scholar who wanted to continue studying what Piaget stated. There are some controversial points, encounters and commonalities, but there are also differences, because according to this sociocultural theory, social constructivism, well, language plays a paramount role, and it's really powerful. So besides social interaction, language is the vehicle for creating communities. It's an interaction between culture, thought, language, and the other way around. The student is not an isolated being, so they give lots of importance to human interaction, and they shed light on language as well in a very particular way. I'm gonna be presenting, these different theories, because what I want you to do is to keep on reflecting on language, but at the same time, I want you to contextualize the information from language itself, theories, and learning theories for the following activities, okay? So that you can actually become aware of why you are investigating learner variables, teacher variables, factors that may affect acquisition. You need to construct and structure all these theories with what is happening with language at the moment and what you want to do in the future with language. So while I'm presenting theory, Vygotsky and Brunner and Krashen's, you will keep on doing your activities, but you will be relating, and mixing the content with what you do for pedagogical purposes. Now, the following activities have to do with classroom management, aside the teacher's roles, the students' roles, seating arrangement, the use of L1 and the use of L2 in the classroom, and a tone of voice, pitch, instructions in the classroom, instructions in tasks, instructions for activities. So this is very important for the learning and teaching processes. But as I said, it's gonna be your task to investigate for your own, cognitive constructivism by Piaget, social constructivism by Brunner and Vygotsky, and Krashen's hypothesis for language learning and language acquisition theories. Krashen's hypotheses are going to be really interesting for you, so I strongly recommend give it a go. Okay. So after reading those authors, those theories, I'm going to be presenting next week one by one the different characteristics of the approaches, and you will continue doing your activities regarding classroom management, because they totally impact the way you see tasks or activities or assignments or homework. So to a certain extent, your investigation might define how you take a look at tasks. Okay. Well, this is going to be just an introduction. Yeah, just an introduction of classroom management, because the most important thing is going to be carried out by your own. You already have a classroom management task that you need to cover for next week. And I think it was for Monday, but I can't remember very well. No, or for Wednesday. I'll let you know in a minute. Well, what is classroom management? Well, classroom management is all the actions and procedures taken to create and to keep a learning atmosphere that supports your instructional goals. What are instructional goals? Well, whenever you want to explain something to someone, you need to think on how you're gonna do it. If you don't, well, you're likely to fail in sharing the knowledge you got. Whenever you plan, your instructions, and you think carefully on how instructions are given, the likelihood of your of your success is a lot bigger. So classroom management is to take into consideration all the elements that might affect your planning, your objectives, your instruction, and your teaching implementation. Okay, so it's very important to take it into account. And Harmer stated that, you know, not only Harmer, but every single scholar who's involved in the teaching and learning process. Brown stated, Richards and Rogers, Paul Davis, David Crystal. So it definitely has an impact. Okay, so one thing I want to share with you today as well is a good piece of advice for stating instructions, you know, for teaching and learning, but also for explaining your your thought, you know, for explaining what you got to share, even if it is not in the context of a school. Another definition is provided by Moore and Hansen, which is that the classroom management is the process of organizing and conducting the business of the classroom. Well, which is quite similar, you know, organization and conduction of what happens in the classroom has to do with planning, preparation, training, and awareness. For managing a classroom, you need to think of the use of the L1 of the context. Doesn't have to be Spanish, because if you go abroad and start teaching Spanish might be a different story, or even teaching English might be a different story. But the use of L1 might be helpful for certain contexts, according to specific researchers, you know, because for other theories, such as Krashen's, the use of L1 diminishes language development. Of course, it's not the same to teach a child than to teach a young adult or to teach an adult. So managing the classroom is discriminating and identifying such differences that might affect your atmosphere. You know, once you lose it, it's very difficult to come back, and it's very hard for learning to take place. So you need to create an atmosphere that enhances learning, that enhances acquisition according to the context. The use of L1 might be beneficial, but it depends a lot on the context. It depends a lot on the setting and the characteristics of your learners, the characteristics of the person you want to share knowledge with. According to Krashen, you know, the use of L2 is fundamental at all times for language acquisition. And what he means by language acquisition is to learn the L2 in a natural fashion, you know. So the more you use the L2, the more language your students are likely to develop. So it would be nice for you to investigate what Krashen refers to by saying language acquisition, which, because it might differ from your investigation. You know, you discriminated foreign language and second language, but you also recorded yourself, video recorded yourselves, and you stated the differences between language acquisition and language learning. I don't know if you can remember, but I do, and I watch your videos. But if you take a look at Krashen's hypothesis of language learning and language acquisition, you will see that he's got a completely different perspective, a different proposal for language acquisition. So language acquisition may take place in any context, at any time, even adulthood, you know, even for the elderly, but following certain steps. So it would be good for you to investigate prescience, which is a theory that we are likely to we're likely to study as well. Another another important point. Sorry, because answering my mobile phone. Another good point that has to do with the use of L1 and L2 is the definition of instructions. Whether by this course, you know, that is written instructions or spoken instructions. And this is what I was referring to at the beginning. When you're giving instructions, you need to think of what you need to transmit and what the others need from you. So a good guideline, well, not good, but a suitable guideline for you to follow might be higher order thinking skills taxonomy and lower order thinking skills taxonomy by Bloom. This taxonomy divides learners' stages in a broad sense, of course, but they actually define what learners are able to do by means of using appropriate verbs, appropriate words, so that you can be understood, even if they don't have the same level. So remember that language level is also another condition to take into consideration for managing the classroom. You might face multi-level classrooms. It usually happens. Okay, to have, you know, a one-level classroom might be the dream of everyone, but you know, it's not that way. You know, life is not that way. You need to explain what you gotta explain to different people, and that's why you need to prepare yourself. You need to understand the processes. Well, hearts and lots, you know, actually help you connect your instruction and learning. Okay, and it's not that is compulsorily related to chronological age and capacities of students, but it has to do with the dialogue and with the connection between what you have to share and what others want to catch from you. We're going to check this taxonomy in a minute. And number 3, seating arrangement might favor or deter your classroom atmosphere, because believe it or not, you know, learning has to do with movement proxemics. You know, if you read Brown, you might be following me. Has to do with proxemics, with senses. You know, in the end, we're talking about human interaction. So your observation skills are playing a paramount role as a teacher, as a facilitator, as an instructor, as a designer, as a manager, you know, as an advisor. So sitting arrangement in the place where you are might be fundamental for keeping control of situations. When working with teenagers, yeah, maybe you have experienced that, teachers find it really hard to keep the concentration going. Teenagers get distracted very easily. Children get distracted very easily. And well, everybody gets distracted very easily, as a matter of fact. But sitting arrangement helps you, you know, take advantage of those seconds, those minutes. People are concentrated, people are focused. And you know, if you arrange correctly the classroom, the dynamics and the projects and the tasks, you know, and you can move around, you will have a different perspective of the classroom, and students will get a different perspective of instruction. So it helps a lot according to Harmer and according to every single scholar. And you will experience that, I'm sure, you know, the ones who will be teaching after graduating. You will experience how sitting arrangement, monitoring, moving around, changing the place of the chairs, making circles, horseshoe sitting, or row lines, even for taking exams, you know, when people are sitting for tests, sitting arrangement plays a very important role. Oh, sorry, the authors. Idea. Okay. Planning and turn taking. Well, planning and turn taking also play an important role in classroom management. Yeah, but that's something we're gonna check later. Now, what are your roles besides all the elements we have mentioned? Well, there are different roles and there are different theories about the ideal language teacher, you know. And I think, you know, this is my personal opinion, that, you know, the effective or the ideal language teacher might be defined by yourself, you know, by identifying your students' perceptions and what they need from you. They define, you know, the effective teacher. They define the ideal teacher. And I think this constantly changes according to the personality of a group. Of course, there is plenty of research that provides with the most relevant characteristics of teachers. But I think you are shaping your teaching identity every single time you teach a different group. So this constantly changes according to the situations and according to the personalities of a group. However, it's important to know the general guidelines and the general characteristics that research has come up with, such as wittiness, you know. This is the responsibility for identifying behavior, you know, and to keep track of a student's performance, you know, to observe, to keep eye contact, and to certain extent, this ability or this role, you know, this role of the teacher might be connected with action research, you know, where you learned a lot from your implementations, but from the students' voices. Another characteristic, according to research, you know, Gage and Berliner, is overlappingness. This has to do with the effectiveness when two situations happen at the same time and you are able to make decisions and manage the situation. You know, for example, people who finish up very early the tasks on Eminus are looking forward to continue working in a very fast manner, in a very quick fashion, you know. So you need to be able to identify those people and to do something for them so that you can follow different rhythms, you know. Some others, you know, need more time to deliver tasks. So what you have to do is to be prepared for both scenarios and to provide with a, different activities or tasks for other people to feel included, to feel and actually to learn following the rhythm. You know, this is just one example, but you know, you could think of many other examples. The next one is smoothness and momentum according to the teacher's roles. You know, the teacher tries to avoid slowdowns during the class and keep the pace between activities without distracting the students. This is face-to-face teaching. When we're talking about, you know, online teaching, such as flipped classroom or blended learning or mobile learning, and you're working at a distance, you know, online, well, this all, of course, has to do with the negotiation and agreement on delivery dates for tasks, you know, online meetings, you know, how to do it, which tools to employ, and when to do it. So this has to do with the roles you got in order to make sure that students are committed to the classroom. The next one is group alerting, and it's about keeping students interested on the task, involved, and there is this element of surprise that keeps students motivated. Okay, so you may have everything planned, but you have certain strategies for, you know, coming up with new things for students to be motivated, energetic, and on the alert. Okay, so it's you know, this sentence is very accurate, you know, to keep suspense in class positively, of course. Otherwise, students might feel insecure, you know, lost, and you don't want it to feel at a loose end, right? Now, according to research, these 5 are the most relevant characteristics of a teacher: knowledgeable, empathetic. Well, knowledgeable refers both, you know, knowledge of the matter, that is English in this case, and knowledge of the subject matter, which would be the pedagogical knowledge, how to teach. Empathetic, well, empathetic to understand students and to know students and to actually take care of their needs. Manager has to do with the classroom management that we are discussing, organized metacognitive strategies and systematization. However, you know, it depends a lot on the students' personalities. So these are general, you know, but some other students would rather take classes with a teacher who's spontaneous, you know, with a teacher who is a free spirit, you know, to a certain extent, and who, rather than guidelines and specific instructions, gives freedom, you know, for expression. So you could see how these general characteristics might differ. And well, finally, patience, right? Patience for dealing with emotions in the classroom and with procedures as well. This is what research states, okay? But you need to reflect on your own thoughts, on your own perceptions. What makes a teacher an effective one? Okay. Well, this was an activity that I proposed at the beginning, but I don't think we're gonna have time. Don't worry, you have a task to accomplish, right, regarding teachers' roles. Well, here you have more data on the teachers' roles, you know, by the data that emerged from action research. The teacher as a guru, the teacher as a priest, as a guide, as a preacher, as a therapist, as a coach, as a mentor, as a consultant. So there are many roles for teachers. Teachers at university play the role of tutors. research advisors, investigators, managers, policymakers, authorities. So there are plenty of roles we need to play for teaching. For teaching children, you need to follow the role of authority, but also you need to educate. And this is something, something that Cameron states at the beginning of her work. It's not the same to teach children than to educate children. So to a certain extent, you are an expansion of the first institution, which is family. For teenagers, you need to be very demanding sometimes. So the teachers' roles vary according to the context, but those are the general ones according to research. Okay, what we need to take into consideration for effectiveness, your own characteristics and the language is basically the learner's characteristics. So this is a representation and an illustration of of classroom management. Now, as I said before, for language teachers, sorry, it's important to be proficient at the language. And a good strategy for you to do it is to certify your language constantly, to take the first certificate of English, to go for the C1 level of English, with a certificate in advanced English, and then to certificate your proficiency of the language, and to continue training yourself, because you never stop learning. Another good point for you to define for your teaching, in case you want to be teachers, and it's the pedagogical knowledge. Pedagogical knowledge is a very important, and it's also considered for the teacher's roles. This pedagogical knowledge has to do with how to deal with the classroom situations, how to take into consideration the diversity in your classroom, and of course, collaboration among teachers. Now, giving instruction. Well, giving instruction might be difficult for both actors in education, teachers and students. If you fail in giving instructions, students feel at a loss end. And they don't know what to do. They feel frustrated, and learning does not take place. So there are certain guidelines for you to follow when giving instructions, and one of them is that they need to be as straightforward as possible, and they need to be logical, and to follow an order according to your syllabus. And of course, the syllabus is going to be included in the curriculum of the school. So that's, a first and foremost. Another step for teachers to follow is to check whether instructions are clear by social interaction, by asking another member of the team to paraphrase instructions, so paraphrasing instructions is also a good strategy if you are using the IATSO in your classroom. Modeling instructions and gestures are also helpful. Those are compensatory strategies. They compensate the lack of words, okay? They compensate the lack of communicative skills in order to provide with meaning. And then what I stated, HOTS and LOTS. HOTS and LOTS help you to define your instructions and they become more friendly for your students. And of course, they give certainty for the objectives of a task. You know, you need to study Hutt's taxonomy. You know, here you have a link that you could explore by your own in order to explore the taxonomy, the classification for, according to Bloom. You know, these higher order thinking skills have to do with what you wish to create in a classroom, what you wish to create for your learning as well. Whether you want to make decisions, whether you want to take responsibility, whether you want to be critical at certain affairs. And I strongly believe they need to be included in the teaching agenda in any stage, you know, private school, public school, um, elementary school, kindergarten, high school, senior high school, university, you know, postgraduate degrees, everywhere, because we need to form, we need to shape, train, and prepare critical thinkers this day and age. It's very important. You will see that the taxonomy is divided into lower thinking skills such as remembering, understanding, and applying, which are really basic, and higher order thinking skills, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. You have the verbs to trigger thinking at each level, okay? If you are working with children, if you are teaching children, of course, you need to go for memorization, recalling, repeating, drilling, reproducing, stating, defining. But if you are working with students from a different context, you know, of course, you're gonna find people from all walks of life. But anyways, you might be focused on creating, you know, constructing, designing, formulating, or discriminating, or distinguishing, or evaluating, even defending, arguing. So these verbs are usually found in instructions for online education, for instructional design, and for face-to-face education as well. When you work at private schools, you are usually asked to design your lesson plans. So using HUTs for the designing of the lesson plans is really helpful. You know, it gives a lot of sense, and it helps following your teaching line, and it helps students to develop critically and holistically. So you should explore. Here you have the link. Oh, shoot. We're about to finish. Okay. Sitting arrangement. Well, sitting arrangement promotes desired behavior according to Karen Clements. There are many ways in which you can arrange desks. Okay. And it can be done according to the number of students you got, their needs, their characteristics, their skills, their ages, of course, the time of the day. This has to do with location, sustenance, and biological rhythms, biorhythms. Once you identify that, you can move your desks. Okay. The following sitting arrangements are the most relevant ones, the most used employed ones. You will see. Yeah. Okay. And remember that you have a task which is related to classroom management. Separate tables, okay, for working in teams, solo work, and you know, you can follow the line of the teacher here monitoring, which is very important. Horseshoe, a circle, you know, which is a kind of a seminar, and orderly rows. Okay, of course, this is for face-to-face teaching. Yeah, this is for face-to-face teaching, which eventually it will be helpful for you. Okay, we don't think of seating arrangement when you're working online, but we do think of, you know, the platforms. You know, I think this has to do with your classroom management, the platforms which are going to be functional for your teaching, the options you got in the platform, and turn taking when participating. And many other elements, of course, for online education that need to be taken into account for classroom management. Well, this was an activity for prepare for you, but I don't think we're gonna have time to do it, you know. But what you can do instead is to think of different activities that could be suitable for each of the seating arrangement, you know, and to think of the advantages and disadvantages of both. For example, a quiz could be carried out by solo work, you know, or you know, a role play could be carried out in a horseshoe arrangement, etc. Well, no, this is not. Well, here you have the characteristics for each seating arrangement. Horseshoe, feasibility for children or students and teachers, and they can see each other, you know. This is a very useful seating arrangement for working with children. Separate tables. Well, the teacher has the opportunity to walk around, to monitor, and to help students. Okay, but it can cause problems with interaction between students among them. Orderly rows might be the perfect option for large classes, which is the case of elementary schools, high schools, you know, where you need to work with 50 people in a classroom, you know, which is really hard. It's time consuming, you know, you need to make a lot of effort to keep control of the situation. But that's, you know, seating arrangement also has to do with the approaches we got regarding language development and regarding language learning. If you think of the context of a high school, of course, you need to teach 50 students, you know, 50 students in a classroom. Imagine how seating arrangement can be worked out. You know, it's almost insane. It's really hard. I've experienced it, and that's why I'm sharing that with you. So if you know how to move desks and how to make students move in the classroom, your learning is going to be favored, and your teaching is going to be favored as well. But if you don't have these seating arrangement strategies, it's going to be really hard. And that's what I was trying to get at. Students and classrooms which are following this orderly rows traditional approach are likely to be taught by using traditional methodologies, such as the grammar translation method. And because of the amount of the classroom, so everything is connected. That might be one of the implications of seating arrangement, you know, the methodology or the approach you decide to employ. So there are different things to take into consideration for the teaching and learning processes. Conclusions, yeah. Effective classroom manager is the one who takes advantage of the learning time and learning situations by employing noticing strategies, and diminishes behavioral problems, whether situational problems or behavioral ones, such as number of students, size of the room, temperature, seating arrangement, uh, um, variables regarding language level, and well, lots of situations we need to solve. Of course, practice and experience is gonna help a lot, making decisions at the moment of teaching and reflecting on your own learning as well. Here you have a couple of references for you to check. I forgot to include questions, but I'm gonna be sending you an email so that you can see questions. And well, thank you very much. This was the presentation, 50 minutes presenting. I'm so sorry, but I finished it up. Okay, wait. Wow, this is an introduction. Okay, it was a revision of your first video of your first task, how language shapes or may shape the way we think. A couple of important factors that I wanted to shed light on because I identified you were very interested in that, so I decided to include it. And well, I don't know if you have any comments or questions. Please let me know. I'm listening to you. Do you have any questions, comments?
No, not so far.
Yeah, then. Okay. Well, I would like to know how you are feeling with the tasks and how you are feeling with the dates for delivery. Are you doing well in a general fashion, in a broad sense? Are you doing well?
Well, personally, I think it's fine. Like it gives us like enough time to do the tasks and to hand them. So yes, I think it's great.
Thank you, Anna Paula. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else who wants to share what your opinions? I think we are doing well. Well, that's what I feel because I've been checking your work, and most of your insights have been really relevant. And well, your participation has been remarkable in a general sense. So your tasks are appropriate, and I can see that you're following the objectives of the course. So this is my proposal. You need to continue with your tasks. You have the following task, which has to do with classroom management for next week. And you also have the task related to factors that may affect that may affect language learning or language acquisition, right? Sorry. For next week. I need time for checking the tasks, and that's why we are meeting only on Fridays, but that's going to be modified while we continue working. So remember that it all depends on the personality of the group and the rhythm of the group. But I think we are doing really well. Yeah, you can see your development in the Excel sheet. You can see your progress, your performance, and your grades there at any time. So if you don't have any more questions, well, I need to go for the next meeting. I will be sending you an email. Okay. I think I'm gonna send you the email on Wednesday for the tasks of unit 3 and 4, okay? And I will let you know when we are meeting again, okay? We are meeting up online again because we need to cover what I decided to include according to your work, according to your evidence. And then I decided to include Piaget, Vygotsky, Brunner, and a little bit of Krashen. But, you know, this is gonna be impacting, well, hopefully, your tasks, okay? What I want you to do is to reflect on the theories and to place them and contextualize them in your tasks, which are related to unit 1, but they are going to be related with unit 2, 3, and 4. Units 2, 3, and 4 are more practical, you know, because they are about teaching and learning rather than theory. This is all theory, and that might be boring, but it's important. Unit 2, 3, and 4 are about, you know, language skills and soft skills such as grammar, vocabulary, speaking, listening, reading, and writing. I want to cover those skills. I want to cover these teaching and learning skills related to the 4 skills of the language, taking into account and always, you know, bearing in mind the different theories we have discussed. And that's why I decided to include those authors and those theories. Okay, does that sound good to you? Yeah, is it good for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, teacher.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're gonna stop here and we will continue working with our tasks. I'm gonna be sending you an email for explaining the following tasks, okay? Thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your participations in the forums. They were great. You know, I was really, really happy. I was surprisingly amazed by your participations, and your videos, of course, are really insightful. You know, they are really valuable. Um, and, you know, I can see you read what you were expected to read, and that's, you know, wonderful for the development of the course. Thank you very much. Check my comments, check my feedback. Be patient because it takes a lot of time to revise, you know, the homework of 150 people, but I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm doing my best, and you are doing your best, I'm sure, and I appreciate it a lot. So thank you very much, and I will see you next week, and I will send you an email. Keep on working with your tasks, okay?
Okay, Prof. See you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
teacher.
much.
Have a nice
Have a
day.
lovely day.
Thank you,
Have a lovely
teacher.
weekend.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. See you.
Warm hugs. Take care, please. Okay.